It was 2 days before Thanksgiving, and Danny was fulfilling his annual duty of driving his parents to his sister's house, just outside Spokane, Washington. He dreaded the 6-hour trek every year and his parents' constant backseat driving. It seemed at least one thing had to go wrong every road trip, and it just so happened that the first mistake on this trip was Danny taking a wrong turn, which sent them down a long, deserted, 2-lane road with nothing but thick, ominous forest on either side. Since the family didn't know how long it would be until they got back on the main road, they made a unanimous decision to stop at a lone rest area to use the restrooms. As they got out of the car and stretched their legs, Danny looked over to see the only other vehicle at the rest stop, a large pickup truck that was parked a few spaces down with a burly bearded man sitting in the driver's seat. After Danny finished his business in the restrooms, he walked back out to where he had parked. His parents seemed to be taking their time, so he decided to look around, while at the same time distracting himself from the overwhelming sense of dread the mysterious stranger in the large pickup truck was causing him. Before he knew it, he heard his car door slam shut, and turned around to see his parents waiting for him. With everyone ready to go, Danny started off down the long stretch of road as darkness consumed everything around them. That was until 2 bright lights came blasting behind him. It was the truck from the rest stop flashing his high beams and honking his horn as if it was the end of days. Danny found it strange that his parents remained calm and quiet despite the nerve-wracking situation. He rolled his window down and motioned for him to pass, but the monstrous truck continued with its harassment. Finally, Danny pulled over, got out, and started yelling at the truck driver who had pulled over behind him. The bearded man exited his truck in a hurry and ran towards Danny. Almost out of breath, the heavy-set man grabbed Danny by the shoulders and in a distressed voice said, "Those people that got in your car weren't the same ones that went into the restrooms. I saw them come from the woods." Before Danny could even comprehend what this man was trying to say, he heard his car doors open, followed by the sounds of footsteps rapidly retreating back into the dark forest that surrounded them. Henry was in a bad situation now. He had made some wrong turns that led him down a back road after he filled his gas tank. The station was very old and very dirty. Henry had gotten mean looks from everyone there, so he drove out of the area as quickly as possible once his tank was filled. But unfortunately, he still didn't know where he was. His phone was dead, and the radio soon turned to static. He turned off the radio to be met with an uncomfortable and uneasy silence. Suddenly, Henry was almost blinded by light, which quickly faded. He looked in his rearview mirror and saw a pickup truck behind him, repeatedly flashing his high beams. How did he not notice he was being followed? But suddenly, Henry was scared. He remembered reading horror stories of people alerting drivers of killers in their back seats with their high beams. He slowly moved his gaze to the rearview mirror, and to his horror, he saw a shadowy figure lying in his back seat. He must have snuck in when he was filling the tank. Henry slowly began to panic. Henry quickly pulled over to the side of the road, just as the truck behind him did. He exited his car and rushed over to the truck. The driver had exited and brandished a revolver. Henry ran over to the driver, and he shouted, "Please, help. There's some killer or mugger in my car." The truck driver smiled and placed the end of the barrel against Henry's forehead. "I know there is," he whispered, "and there's about to be a second one." When I first took this job to be an over-the-road trucker, I thought it would be really exciting. I thought I'd get to travel the country and see the sights and come home with stories to tell my friends and family. I was right. The job was exciting, but I soon found that I'm better off not sharing these stories with anyone close to me. Not because I don't trust them, but because I'm worried they wouldn't believe me. Let me back up. My name is Brittany. I'm 22 years old, and I've been driving with a rather large company for a few months now that I won't name due to obvious reasons. Ever since my training ended, I got my own truck to start solo. I've seen some pretty weird shit. When you're driving the loneliest road in America, yes, that's its real name, in the middle of nowhere, Nevada, things can start to get to you. I suppose it was only a matter of time before I saw something. Out in the desert at nearly midnight, I still had another hour to the nearest truck stop, and blasting the freezing cold air against my face was all I could do to keep myself from dozing off at the wheel. Irresponsible, I know, but until you work this job, you don't understand how much lax comes with it. I was driving this highway, in the desert, in the pitch blackness of a cold summer night, when suddenly something ran out onto the road in front of me. Before I can even react, it's gone across the other side into the bushes. I barely got a good look at it, but I could have sworn it looked like a large white dog, faster than any dog I've ever seen. I've tried just to ignore it and keep driving. I see animals crossing the road at night all the time. It didn't seem like anything to get worked up about. Not even a minute later, I feel my truck lurch to the left and into the other lane. I quickly try to swerve and correct it, and easily step on the brakes so I don't crash. It can be easy to jackknife an 80,000-pound metal death machine. I slow it down and regain control. I look for the nearest pullover spot so I can see what the hell just hit my rig and see if there's any damage. Once I find a spot and turn off, hit my brakes, and hop out, I walk around to the other side and see a large dent in the side of my trailer. It's a huge dent, at least 5 feet wide and tall. No real shape to it, just a general dent. I can't imagine what could have hit me. My first thought was maybe a boulder rolled down from the side of the hill and smashed into me. But I didn't think I was driving next to any hills or mountains. As far as I knew, it was a flat desert. I hear the sound of dirt crunching under the footfall behind me and I turn around. My breath catches in my throat, and my stomach drops as I see something standing not 50 feet away from me. It's large, menacing, and white. I can't even find the words to describe what this thing looked like. It looked like a very large dog, and that's a stretch. It stood on 2 short, stout legs, with long forearms reaching down past its knees. Its shoulders were broad and heaving as if it had just ran a marathon. Its head was mostly shaped like a wolf, with a large snout filled with razor-sharp teeth barred in a snarl, saliva dripping from its mouth. Its jet-black eyes bore right through me, filled with hatred and hunger. I couldn't move. I was frozen in place. This creature stood between me and my only salvation, my truck. We stared at one another for a moment until I broke the silence. "You are one ugly son of a bitch," I said. It snarled at me. Then, very unexpectedly, it turned and walked away slowly using all 4 of its limbs, receding into the bushes and into the night. I stood there for what felt like several minutes, wondering if it would jump out and feed on my flesh at any moment. It never came back. I ran around the front of my truck and jumped inside, locking the door quickly and flooring it, as fast as you can floor an 18-wheeler, which is not at all. Soon, I was back on the highway and barreling down it as if my life depended on it. For a while, it felt like it did. Within a half hour, I found myself at a truck stop and shut down for the night. Sleep was difficult that night. I was certain every noise I heard was that damn creature returning. Luckily, the night went on without another incident. Remember, guys, be careful out there on the road. You never know what else is out there with you. I've been driving on this road for hours, maybe even days. Time seems to stretch and compress like a surreal dream on this desolate highway. The landscape is eerily repetitive. The same gnarled trees, the same abandoned gas stations, the same empty horizon. The road just keeps going, looping back on itself in a never-ending cycle. At first, I thought I was just lost. I had set out for a simple drive to clear my head, escape the monotony of my daily routine. But as the hours passed, a creeping sense of unease settled in. I tried turning around, taking different exits, but every turn, every detour led me back to the same unending stretch of asphalt. The radio, once a source of solace with its cheerful music and chatter, now only emits static, interspersed with barely audible, distorted messages that warn, turn back, but back to where? The concept of direction has lost its meaning here. My phone, useless, has no signal, and the GPS just shows an endless loop. I'm alone, with only my thoughts for company, thoughts that grow darker with each passing mile. The fuel gauge is worryingly low, but strangely, it never seems to completely run out. It's as if the road itself is sustaining me, keeping me trapped in this liminal space. Night falls, but it's unlike any night I've known. The darkness is absolute, a thick blanket of blackness that the car's headlights can barely penetrate. I should be tired, should need to sleep, but exhaustion eludes me. It's as though this road has taken not just my sense of direction, but my very need for rest. I remember reading about phantom roads, mythical endless journeys that trap unwary travelers, stories I dismissed as folklore, tales to scare children. But now, I wonder if I've become such a tale, a modern-day Sisyphus condemned to drive an eternal highway. Hope wanes with each repeated landmark, that broken billboard with its faded, indecipherable message, the solitary crow that perches on a dead tree, watching me pass again and again. It feels like a silent sentinel, a witness to my endless journey. In moments of desperation, I shout into the void, begging for release, for an end to this journey. But my pleas are swallowed by the vast emptiness, unanswered, and seemingly unheeded. As I drive, the border between reality and nightmare blurs. Is this a punishment, a test, or simply a random twist of fate? My mind races with questions that have no answers. The road continues to unfurl before me, an infinite ribbon of tarmac beneath the starless sky. I've come to accept that I may never find my way off this path. This unending road has become my reality, a surreal existence where all I can do is keep driving, searching for an end I'm no longer sure exists.